Hello and welcome to Gritty Reboot, the show where we make fun of TV's dark side. I'm Hunter Markham, and with me, as always, is the newly minted River Vixen doing a sad white girl twerk in the gymnasium, Kevin James. Kevin, how are you?
I'm pretty excited to have made the cheerleading squad, Hunter. I've already been invited to 3 games to spin the bottle, and they've all ended in Cheryl's enemies running away from her house in tears.
You are multiple games of Spin the Bottle up on me. I'm still at 0 lifetime.
Well, you have to join the River Vixens first, Hunter.
Okay, yeah. I'm gonna have to shave my legs, which could take forever.
And joining us all the way from our living room, resident Archie expert, Sarah Dunaway. Sarah, how are you?
Well, I just got back from my nightly shirtless jog, so I'm feeling great, pumped and ready to go.
I thought I heard you getting up last night, but I just assumed you were sneaking off to Jughead's treehouse.
Fair.
He's got a good setup over there. So, Sarah, would you tell the good people out there about your familiarity with Riverdale and Archie comics?
Well, I'm mostly familiar with Riverdale, so when the first season dropped on Netflix, a bunch of my coworkers started watching it, and they told me to watch it. So what I'm saying is basically I was forced. I had absolutely no choice in the matter. I had to start watching it as well. And I would say that I both hated it and loved it in equal measure. Dropped off sometime in the second season, so we'll see how everyone feels when we get there. But definitely watched all the first one.
So you've seen much further down the road than either of us, but you're not sitting in front of the TV every week as season 4 episodes premiere, because I believe season 4 is going on right now as we speak.
That sounds right, but no, she hasn't seen anything since the second season, right?
Right.
You said you didn't enter this voluntarily, so I feel like you're casting a little bit of judgment on us since we said, hey, let's do this.
Yeah, it's a bold choice, you guys. I'm not sure that that this is the show I would have chosen, but you're making the most of it, and I appreciate that.
Look, there are only so many sexy horror dramas. What were we supposed to do? Start with the Charmed reboot?
Wait, there's a Charmed reboot?
Oh, yes. I'm looking forward for that after we finish this one.
There is also a new sexy horror version of Nancy Drew that the CW is putting on, which I think should also be excellent.
And of course,
terrible, obviously.
At some point, we're getting to the chilling adventures of Sabrina.
Clearly.
We have limitless material here, and the good thing is, it's weird for one almost 30-year-old guy to talk about this on the air, but it's not strange at all if there's 2 of them, and then with you in the mix, I'm not sure if we wrap back around to it being weird that this many people are talking about Riverdale.
I mean, how would we not still be talking about Riverdale?
All right, so before we get into a new department that I worked on hard this week, I wanted to tell you guys something that we all noticed, but I don't know if the people at home noticed. Every episode of Riverdale is named after a classic or famous film. So the first episode, The River's Edge, named after the 1986 art house film of the same name starring Keanu Reeves. And this episode, A Touch of Evil, is named after the 1958 Orson Welles film, and I think that's considered like one of his best films after Citizen Kane.
Okay, I'd never heard of A Touch of Evil, but I've heard of The River's Edge. Yet again, I'm just a garbage person.
No, you are our foremost Keanu expert, as I have told you repeatedly, just never on air.
Yeah, Keanu Reeves is a national treasure, an actor with limitless range.
So I've only seen a handful of Orson Welles films, so I'm not maybe the best judge because of the 3 or 4 I've seen. Touch of Evil was my 3rd or 4th favorite. I remember it being pretty good, but everything else I saw of his I liked better. It has Charlton Heston and Brownface, though, so I guess that's something.
That sounds awful, honestly. I've never seen an Orson Welles film, to my knowledge. It was kind of a toss-up between Citizen Kane and Riverdale, and I made the obvious choice.
If you ever want an Orson Welles film to see, I highly recommend Chimes at Midnight.
Again, you could just be making these up.
I have never heard of that film.
It was a lost film for a while. It was a film he made in Europe when he was kind of exiled from Hollywood. And he basically carved pieces out of like 5 or 6 Shakespeare plays to make a somewhat new but still like faithful to the text movie about the character of Sir John Falstaff, and it's probably the best Shakespeare film ever made.
Wow, wait a second. Are you implying that it is a better Shakespeare film than 10 Things I Hate About You?
I would never do that.
Okay, good.
So, in that same vein, Riverdale's making highbrow cultural references across the board, so they're really following the footsteps of Orson Welles.
Exactly. I think it's safe to say that the showrunner of Riverdale is really our generation's Orson Welles.
I don't know who the showrunner is.
I don't either. We should probably look that up at some point.
I don't know who's making this. I can only name 2 of the actors on this show we've been talking about.
Which two?
I know Luke Perry.
Yes.
And KJ Appa.
Oh, please. It is Kajapa in his native New Zealand.
Wait, is he really from New Zealand?
He really is. It's an
from New
impressive
Zealand.
American accent, though.
Wow. He's a lot better actor than I was giving him credit for.
Yeah, he's from New Zealand. His father is a Samoan chief. He's a much more interesting person than he plays on this show.
Yeah, because he kind of plays a piece of white toast.
Sure does.
Which I believe is faithful to the Archie comics, but Hunter, you will have to confirm.
Yeah, I mean, Archie, he's just a guy. I think that was the thing. He's the everyman that you can relate to, except he's got girls all over him, so at the same time, he's living a fantasy.
This is the same trouble I had with figuring out if the actors in Twilight were good. It's like, I can't tell whether they're good or not in this, because these are how the characters are written. Are they just playing them the way they're written and doing a great job of being boring people, or are they just bad actors? And as it's turned out in retrospect, they were really good actors playing bad characters.
Yeah, they had just had no material to work with.
Yeah, and Kristen Stewart, credit to her, she got through the entire filming of Twilight without opening her mouth all the way. I think she was suffering from lockjaw.
So now, I think it's safe to say that we had a lot of fun making fun of the cultural references in the last episode, but we should clip them all out and play them in a supercut for the audience right now, because we don't want to have to recite them for everyone.
And terrible secrets that could only be revealed by the cold steel blade of a coroner's autopsy scalpel, or the telltale beating of a guilty heart. Look, it's the rich kids from the Goonies.
Watch it, Wednesday Addams.
It was such a basic bitch move. It was like I was possessed by...
Madam Satan?
Neither I nor my parents will rest until Jason's death is avenged, and his cold-hearted killer is walking the Green Mile to sit in Old Sparky and Fry.
My type? Definitely. But you've got more demons than the Exorcist. Knows. I mean, I am devastatingly handsome in that classic pre-accident Montgomery Clift kind of way.
Romeo and Juliet are the exception, not the rule. Going for this Joan Crawford, Mildred Pierce thing. Is it working?
I kissed her, and I asked her to marry me. She was like, "Oh, little Archie, we're too young."
What was it like, Suicide Squad? When you shot Jason? Holy crap. Did you and Donnie Darko kill him together?
So yeah, those were the cultural references. Hunter, you noticed one that I had missed about little Archie?
Yeah, that was during the scene where Veronica and Archie are walking back from Pop's Diner. They reference the Little Archie comic series, which was a set of comic adventures with a 7-year-old Archie rather than teenage Archie, that I think started running in the mid-50s.
Yeah, and so after that, I went back to look for other references I might have missed, and I learned that when Kevin calls Veronica Madam Satan, that's actually a character from Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
I had absolutely no idea of that.
I didn't either. Thank you to the Riverdale wiki for singling that out for me. And there are, again, a lot of like old movie references. My personal favorite is Kevin says, "You have more demons than The Exorcist." The Exorcist, a movie very famously, has exactly one demon in it.
Pazuzu, and that's it.
Yes.
Yeah, so 2 demons.
Yes, the minimum you would need to pluralize demon. You have more demons than a single demon.
Hey, it's better to me than his Montgomery Clift reference.
Okay, so both of you actually knew who that was. I was the only one looking up on Wikipedia like an it. Who is Montgomery Clift?
I know who he is, but it's a pretty obscure reference, especially for a 15-year-old.
I only knew who he was from a 1979 Clash song, and that was already an old reference then.
Yeah, they have so many classic film references. It made sense when I learned that they named all their episodes after classic films, because they're just film geeks. They want you to know they've seen old movies.
Yeah, like Suicide Squad.
Yes, the oldest and most revered.
So the show creator must be a man, then, to just want to list everything he knows.
That sounds plausible.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they reference Mildred Pierce, which is a 1941 novel by James Cain, but the version they reference is the Oscar-winning 1945 film, because she mentions the actress who was in it, who I'm blanking on right now.
Joan Crawford,
Yes,
I
Joan
believe?
Crawford. And it was actually pretty recently remade into an Emmy-winning HBO miniseries with Kate Winslet in 2011. But nope, gotta go all the way back to 1945.
Yeah, that was Veronica's mom. So that's a little bit more leeway, but still, she's probably born in like the 70s. I don't see how she was tossing off a reference to a 1945 film and expecting her sophomore daughter to get it.
Which is funny, because I would totally believe she's like the type of wine mom who's like, yeah, I just watched an HBO miniseries, so I'm going to casually drop that into conversation. But nope, 1945 film.
She's a classy lady.
Yeah. And then I think Reggie had my favorite references of the episode with, okay, so he did Wednesday Addams, Suicide Squad, and Donnie Darko. Guys, I think Reggie has the most believable references for a teen so far.
Absolutely.
And I thought that his references landed a lot better than anyone else's.
Yeah.
The Wednesday Addams joke he made when he bumps into Jughead in the hall was actually a funny moment, and one of the few times that I laughed out loud in Riverdale when I think I was supposed to laugh out loud.
I like the Suicide Squad reference too, not because it's a good reference, but because I totally believe a teen boy would have seen it and would try to use it as an insult.
Donnie Darko was perfect too. I mean, we don't know this yet, but obviously Jughead goes running in a bunny suit every night with Archie. That's just how they roll. Makes perfect sense.
Jughead and Archie takes me to the first part of this episode. I'm sure that we're going to wrap back around to references, but does every single episode begin with a Jughead monologue followed by shirtless Archie?
It better.
Obviously, yeah.
I'm super on board with that, but that's literally how this episode starts. We've got Jughead monologuing, and then, all right, Archie is basically naked in bed.
Naked in bed, trying to get Betty's attention, and so Betty becomes the first woman in history to receive a platonic "you up" text at 2 a.m. from a half-naked teen boy.
I don't know why he sent a text message when it's clear that their bedroom windows are 10 feet apart, and hers was blinds open, lights on. He could see right in there.
They should really have one of those, like, string cans between their windows.
At this point, that makes more sense because he just stood up and looked out the window anyway.
But she shut him down, which, I mean, good for her. She must not have heard that he's hot now.
He is making things really hard for her. He's like, come on, I need some platonic comfort right now. Why won't you look at me when I'm half naked in front of you?
Yeah, now he's just showing off. I'm just keep thinking about how close their bedroom windows are. And the fact that over the past 2 years, from ages 13 to 15, she's probably caught him jerking off like 60 times.
Why do you think she's in love with him?
Yeah, she's seen when he's working with, but he's probably had to see her get like locked in a cage by her crazy parents or something.
Oh my god, I wouldn't be surprised. And so naturally he does the most obvious thing after he can't get comfort from his neighbor. He puts on pants, but not a shirt, and goes running to his teacher's house.
I don't know why he even put on pants. He could have just gone over there naked.
And Sarah actually brought up a running joke in the Riverdale community about Kajappa's shirtlessness.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the joke in that community is that KJ Appa is clearly allergic to shirts. He has a devastating shirt allergy that the show is just really trying to cover up.
The guy has like 12% body fat. He looks ripped as hell running. I'm not even mad. If I had a body like that, I'd be showing it off too.
Oh yeah, he looks fantastic.
But I think you had some timeline issues about Archie getting so incredibly hot so incredibly fast. And I started finding out some weird things about the timeline too.
Oh yes, the timeline, once we thought about it for a week, we started realizing how insane and nonsensical a lot of this is. Sarah, you actually went to high school in the New York area, so when did schools usually get out for summer?
So usually the last day of school would be like mid-June, and then finals week would be next, so it could be until the 21st maybe, 20th, 21st, but that would be the latest.
Yeah, so depending on how we're counting, New York schools get out summer between the 15th and the 21st. And we know that Archie got hot by July 4th at 6 a.m. Probably earlier than that because we saw her pick him up, but we don't know how much earlier. So
could have been July 3rd.
Archie got abs and got hot in the span of like 2 weeks.
I mean, clearly the only explanation for this, he's shirtless all the time. He just rips his shirt off at a moment's notice, and he suddenly got buff overnight. He is a werewolf. I'm not sure what other explanation is possible.
Yeah, unless he was ripping off so many shirts that it just built his muscles that way.
Well, yeah, that seems plausible.
My thing is, he was working construction. That's how he got hot. I don't know about you guys, but I don't look at a lot of construction workers and say, man, that body on that guy, he's like a Greek god.
Yeah, not so much.
I think that goes back to the previous episode where Reggie had a really good point of, like, what are you on? This seems illegal at this point.
Just a selection of herbal teas.
Yeah, a really, really powerful selection of herbal teas. But there's a few other timeline problems with Riverdale. The one that you got me thinking about, Kevin, is Jason Blossom and Cheryl Blossom's age.
Yes. So when you pointed out to me, I was like, oh my God, how did I miss that?
Cheryl was in the same science class as Archie and the rest of the gang, which implies she's in the same grade as them, making her a sophomore. Her twin, Jason, was on the varsity football team and was dating Betty's older sister. So if he would have been a sophomore, that meant the previous year when he was doing all these things, being on varsity, dating an older girl, he was a freshman.
Wait, Hunter. Can we really just assume that Cheryl's twin is the same age as her?
I'm going out on a limb here. I don't know a lot about how birth works, but I'm going to guess that he was at most half an hour older than her. I don't think that's enough for him to be another grade or two. Going into the first episode, I thought they were like juniors or seniors.
And it's so funny too, because they really call out in the first episode, like, it's a big deal for you to be on varsity as a sophomore, Archie, but like, Jason would have been on varsity as a freshman. So it can't be that big of a deal for someone a year older than him to have taken his place.
I think they were trying to slip one past us. They just didn't expect eagle-eyed detective skills applied to Riverdale.
You can't use logic when you're approaching this show. It just doesn't work.
Then you've really kicked at the cornerstone of this entire podcast.
I just ruined it. Sorry.
Guys, that's a good episode.
Folks, that has been Gritty Reboot. We are sponsored by Logic. I guess we'll see you never.
Yeah, nothing makes sense in this world. Archie got hot in 6 minutes. Everyone's age is changing. And now his teacher is desperately trying not to bang him as he came over to her house in the middle of the night.
What I really like is during this conversation, neither of them proposes the really obvious solution to their problem, which is one of them saying they were by the river and heard the gunshot, but were alone. Like, why wasn't Archie on his shirtless jog at 6 a.m. on July 4th? Or why wasn't Mrs. Grundy there just holding her cello as she does?
I didn't think of that either. That's the perfect solution.
Yeah.
And they do come to it by the end, but at first, like, no, we can't come forward. They'll know about us. You're like, you're right. There's no other way to tell them that one of us was there. They'll just automatically know.
The quote is, "If anyone knows we were there, I could lose my job. You could be expelled. We could go to jail." I don't think that anything bad would happen to Archie if people found out that he was sleeping with his teacher. It'd be like he's being taken advantage of by a middle-aged woman who's a pedophile. She's gonna go to jail. He would be fine.
Yeah, it's so weird.
Well, it's a classic predator trick, though, to be like, oh, you're gonna get in so much trouble if we get caught, even though the predator obviously knows only I would get in trouble.
Yeah, that's what I assume she's doing. It's just weird that the show doesn't ever highlight that it is a lie. Like, it's kind of treated as if it's face value.
Yeah, the whole relationship is very uncomfortable. They did a good casting job. KJ Apa in this season is...
Please, Kajapa.
My apologies. He's 19, and Sarah Habel, who plays Miss Grundy, is 34. And, I mean, she's beautiful and she looks great, but she looks like she's probably over 30. And so it looks pretty awkward. And it obviously is a huge violation because she's his teacher. And yet the show never seems to really use that as a point of drama when it is such an obvious conflict.
Yeah, she's really creepy and manipulative, and what I ended up thinking was, what if this situation was reversed, where it was one of our female characters who was dating a male older teacher? There would be alarms going off about this, and that person would be painted as a villain non-stop.
The show really minds the smallest things for such drama, and then focuses so little on the actual seriousness of Miss Grundy's actions that you kind of get this weird tonal dissonance of like, oh my god, we heard a gunshot. This is the most devastating thing that has ever happened. Oh, by the way, we're having sex. That's cool, right?
Yeah, it seems like Jughead could be, instead of the weird conversation, which we'll get to later, where They have this very dramatic conversation surrounding going to the police or not. Jughead could be researching Miss Grundy's past and trying to confront Archie with it and really concerned about his friend, and none of that's happening.
The other issue is because all of the characters who have opined on relationships between younger men and older women have been kind of so cavalier and gung-ho about, like, oh yeah, tap that cougar ass. The impression you really get is that if Archie and Miss Grundy came out about their relationship in the next episode, literally every character except maybe Betty would be like, oh, that's hot.
His coach would have said, like, oh yeah, you're starting quarterback now. That's what I like to see, a real go-getter.
Varsity material right there.
There is something that I found as I was digging into this scene, because they really wanted to add some more meat into the Archie character and his music.
Ooh, yeah.
So Miss Grundy and Archie discuss it a little bit more in depth here. She seems very determined to keep their relationship under wraps. And if you listen to this audio clip, you can begin to see why. So let's go to the tape.
You can't sing this stuff, Archie. Come on, these are all about me.
What? How could you say that?
What about this line? My music teacher got the best of me. She taught me a new melody.
That could be about, like, anything. It's a metaphor.
Metaphor? What about this? They say it's wrong. They call it statutory. But I'm your red Lolita and you're my bedtime story?
What? Just because I'm a kid I can't understand Nabokov? You should hear some of the references Veronica's been making.
Come on. Look at this one. Oh, Miss Geraldine Grundy, I love it when you undress me.
Well, sure. It could be interpreted in a sexual way if you really wanted to twist the meaning here.
Archie, this one is just titled, I'm a sophomore in high school and I fucked my teacher, parentheses, this is not a metaphor.
I'm 15 and I've had sex twice. What do you expect me to write about?
Wow, that was some really good digging, Hunter.
It's just strange that they kept that out of the show, because I think it really lends more to Miss Grundy's side of the story, where she's terrified of Archie going public with his music.
She's really suffering here.
So that brings us to, I think, one of my favorite scenes in the episode. Betty's mom warns her away from Archie, and Betty immediately goes and asks Archie to walk her to school. Just a perfect quick cut of, like, what their relationship is like, and just such a believable teen behavior.
No one listens to their parents in this at all. Archie sneaks out, gets a slap on the wrist and no consequences. Betty's just like, all right, crazy mom, I'm gonna listen to you. Doesn't at all.
I like how Luke Perry, when Archie returns from his night jogging, is like, oh, it's totally cool and normal that you were jogging in the middle of the night, Archie. That's definitely not a cover-up for sex or drugs. Seemed just like a normal high school thing to do. Absolutely. Like, what parent does that?
Picture for a second that you two are my parents, and I'm a 15-year-old.
Wait, are we not your parents, Hunter? Did the adoption paperwork not go through?
Not yet.
Son, I can't believe you would say that about us.
Picture you're my parents, and I say this line to you in the kitchen about a girl I'm dating. Quote, I think we should do something, and it's the right thing, but the girl says that if we do, or if I do this thing, it'll ruin what we have. Would you A, ask a follow-up question, B, say, wow, this is the most honest conversation we've had in a while, C, just figure that I'm being moody.
It's so hard to choose.
I would actually go with D, I would place a fatherly, reassuring hand on your shoulder and then stare into the middle distance without answering.
That's basically what Archie's dad does. He just, like, says, wow, great talk, son. I have no questions.
It totally sounds, when you isolate that, and when you don't know the context, like, Archie is basically saying, like, Dad, I totally want to have sex with this girl.
Yes.
She doesn't want to.
That's absolutely how it sounds. But, I mean, it's clear at this point that Archie could show up covered in blood, dusted in PCP, and Luke Perry would just be like, seems like you're going through something, son. I won't ask you anything about it. Just thank you for coming to me.
Just follow your heart. Remember what I've always told you. It's the final quarter. It's go time. 4 on the floor. Get out there and just give it your best shot. That is all of Luke Perry's advice. Every single time. There's no real, like, parental concern.
Just paternal truisms and, like, vague emotional support.
And Betty's mom is a totally different story.
I love how she's all about the hot goss, but she doesn't want Betty to be friends with any of the cool kids. Like, doesn't she understand how this works? And also, it's really funny how she just really wants to be in on it so much that Betty ends up basically being like, fine, Mom, you make out with Veronica and fuck Archie. Like, I'll back off. Fine.
Oh, yeah, there's a great line when Archie is walking Betty to school where Betty's like, I just had to sort out what I want from what my mom wanted. And so I think we can now confirm Betty's mom also wants Archie.
Who doesn't?
As we covered in the last episode, everyone wants Archie. She's been next door to him as well. She's seen the transformation.
And so when they get to school, Veronica sends dozens of yellow roses symbolizing friendship to Betty to apologize for kissing Archie. And Betty very passively is like, yeah, I forgive you.
One thing I loved about this scene was when they walk into the office, Kevin asks the lady behind the desk, oh, are those for Betty? And she just responds with the most sarcastic, yeah, that's why I called her. Like, just basically calling him a dipshit.
I mean, that's not wrong. From what we've seen of Kevin so far.
Also, Magnolia Cupcakes is wildly overrated, and Veronica should know this. I'm really concerned that she doesn't.
She does call herself a basic bitch in that scene, though. So she's
Fair.
Doubling down on it.
We entirely skipped over, though, before that scene in the office, Jughead and Archie have a brief conversation where Jughead tells Archie his primary character trait, as one does to their childhood best friend, that he uses sardonic humor to relate to the world. Very important.
I think overall Jughead's a very likable character, and I enjoy him, but his introduction in this episode when he interacts with Archie is abysmal.
It's so bad. He's like, you know me, Archie. I'm a baby-faced loner type who makes lots of self-references. Also, I wear a funny hat.
As I've said, wearing a hat is a personality.
Absolutely, that is his primary character
But yeah,
trait.
the sardonic humor line, oh, that was bad, because that is not the right word. I think they meant gallows humor, or something along those lines. Sardonic is not it.
But even before that, his line of,
Do you think I could use Jason Blossom's death as an excuse to get out of PE? Sorry, Coach, I'm just too depressed and freaked out right now to do pull-ups.
came across really callous, and he just seemed like one of those high school boys who thinks being super offensive is the same thing as being funny.
Yeah, it was rough.
And I feel like it undercuts him as a likable character, so I just try and forget that introduction.
I definitely forgot how little he appears in these first few episodes in this season, and also just, how weird he is in the few conversations you see of him.
Yeah.
He gets a lot better.
Yeah, he learns to spell necrophilia. It's a big moment
It's
for
very
him.
exciting.
Wow. I can't wait for the spelling bee episode. That's where the drama's really gonna ratchet up a few notches.
I wonder if that's going to be the episode titled Chapter 43, Aquila and the Bee.
Is that a book that I should know or movie?
It's a movie.
Yes, it's a movie.
Okay.
That's a joke I wanted to ask you guys later. Which famous film would you like an Archie episode to be titled after?
Oh,
You don't have to answer now. Just think about it for later. Obviously, I'm hoping for Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones.
I'll have something by the time we get to the end. But is this the scene where they had another flashback to Jason Blossom walking down the hall?
Yes.
Yeah.
First of all, it's still weird how they pictured Jason and Cheryl together in these flashbacks, drinking out of the same chocolate sundae and stuff at Pops. That's super creepy.
Well, Hunter, I don't want to ruin this for you, but it was actually a strawberry sundae, which makes it okay.
Oh, okay, yeah, then it's fine for siblings to share that.
It's really important that your choice of ice cream relate to your hair color and your character on this show.
Yes, we will get to that at the end, too. And that is why this episode is titled Double Chocolate Shake.
Everything about the Jason character flashbacks is weird, though. It's not the actor's fault, but the way they shoot that kid in the flashbacks makes him look like he has porphyria, or that disease that the Tsar's kids had where their blood wouldn't clot.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I just wonder if Jason and Archie had a long-standing feud about whose red dye job was worse. And I mean, Team Jason all the way. It's very, very bad. That's probably why he was killed. Honestly, I'm sure Archie did it. Just couldn't take the pressure anymore of being second best, worst dye job.
they went for a little bit more of a subtle Auburn thing with Archie rather than the flaming red hair with Jason, which I think they probably used him as a test subject of, oh yeah, that's not going to look good.
Too far. Reel it back.
Let's dial it down for Archie.
And so I think that brings us to the investigation where the principal announces, hey, anyone with information, hint, hint, Archie, should come to the police and tell them about Jason's death. And Archie, who for some reason is just walking down the hallway in the middle of this announcement, looks in on the principal. The principal looks back, and Archie very pointedly avoids eye contact. And the principal's like, huh, that's weird. Should definitely check that out later.
I think he cares more about Archie than Archie's dad does.
Yeah.
Yeah, the principal is paying a lot of attention to Archie, which, I mean, I get it. He got hot over the summer. What can you do?
That teen boy seems pretty moody and is avoiding eye contact. He must be a witness and not just a normal teen boy.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the principal gets those quick lookaways as often as police do. Just like, don't want to make eye contact. I'm not doing anything wrong.
And this is also the scene where Cheryl announces that she has seen Green Mile.
Yes, old Sparky. She's also wearing a giant red spider brooch, which obviously is definitely not symbolic in any way. Has no significance.
Of her being a Red Widow?
Wow, that seems like you're drawing a lot of conclusions.
Yeah, and I was thinking about wardrobe in this scene because she's wearing clothing that no high school dress code I'm aware of would allow, because she's in short shorts and a midriff-bearing top.
Well, she can get away with it because she's grieving. You know, she's just rended her garments, probably. That's why she's wearing so little.
And she also delivers, best line of the episode, hashtag Riverdale strong.
Everything she said with the Green Mile and sitting old Sparky, every time she talks, it's a cringe for me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it gets worse when we're in science class and two girls come up and say to Cheryl, and I quote,
Back in July, you told the Popo that Jason drowned.
and she gives like a vaguely psychotic speech about who knows what happened to Jason. I made it out of the river. He didn't. Maybe someone shot him on the other side. Ah!
I love this science class scene. There's so much good stuff in here.
Yeah.
So many great things.
Apparently, in science class, you can just pick your lab partner instead of the person who is assigned the same Bunsen burner set as you. And everyone does musical chairs with their partners.
It's the classroom of Freudian slips, as I was starting to call it. This is, quote, Archie, I want to be with Cheryl. Veronica says she wants to be with Betty, which is where I think this is all gonna go. And then Moose says, Keller's with me. And I'm like, this romance isn't done yet.
He is very territorial, that Moose. Maybe he has some young in the area. I'm not sure.
And as we find out later, Veronica ships it. Kevin and Moose.
Which I thought was something people only said online.
Oh no, it's something real live fictional people say in overwritten teen dramas.
Yes, let's pretend I have never said that.
But Veronica requests to be Betty's partner and then comes to sit down next to her and says, once again, fate throws us together.
Does she think she is fate?
She specifically asked to be Betty's partner. It wasn't like, oh, there was a random drawing and Betty and Veronica, you guys are partners.
The way I forced myself in your life seems awfully fateful, huh?
Yeah, it's just, by fate that I keep waiting outside your house in a parked car, taking photographs of you and your family. Strange how things work out.
And then Archie tries to comfort Cheryl, who does a great job being petty and vindictive. She says her twin tuition is telling her, and that line.
You keep stabbing me with these lines, because that one was awful.
Yeah, that's a very high-ranking candidate for our cringiest line department. But she says she has a feeling someone they know killed Jason. And then she brutally dissects a frog in like the most psychopathic way anyone has ever seen. That the earlier girls were talking to her gasp in horror at the dissection process.
Okay, what was she doing to that thing? Carving her initials into it like she does to every boy she makes out with?
Clearly. Archie seems concerned that it's a little too soon to be getting involved in frog dissection. I think he's just trying to be nice. We all know that frog looks exactly like Jason Blossom. It's a lot. It's a little too soon.
And while they're doing that, across town, the coroner is opening up Jason's body, and Betty's mom is paying for access to the body, which, why?
You know, she's curious.
She wants to get that autopsy report just a couple days early. It's worth a few hundos, you know? Totally makes sense.
At the time, I totally thought, like, this is weird. I don't know why she'd pay for this early. Like, maybe she's trying to bribe the coroner, but I don't think she was doing that either. I think the writers just really thought, like, there's no other way to get an autopsy report but to bribe the coroner.
Okay, this rules her out as a murder suspect in my mind, though, because she's paying for this information illegally for some reason, so she can't be the one that killed Jason.
That makes sense. I don't know if the show also makes sense, so we'll see if that logic actually holds up.
I'm still trying to track the main mystery of who killed Jason, and Betty's mom is right now, like, low priority suspect.
I'm not going to comment.
Yeah, you can't spoil this. I'm the guy with the theories of A, Jughead's a ghost. B, new theory, Jason died in some sort of sex accident because we find out that he was tied up before he died, or...
Oh, you will hear about my theory at the end. It dovetails nicely with my theory about Moose's giant member.
Moose tied him up with his giant penis.
Oh, you're getting so close, but I shouldn't spoil it. So after that, we get another broken-hearted Betty scene. She, Veronica, and Kevin all walk over to Archie. Oh yeah, they ask him to play a song, and it's so funny. They always frame Archie just out of frame playing his guitar, so it looks like maybe he's not actually playing. It's especially funny because they do a similar thing with Miss Grundy. Every time you see her, she's just holding a cello, not playing, just holding it as if, oh, I was totally about to start playing or have just finished playing. Or maybe I just like to pretend my cello is a teenage boy.
Which is weird because KJ Apa actually is a good guitar player. They just haven't shown us that at all.
Yeah, we were looking up some of his like actual music stuff. He's really good. He put out a very accomplished album when he was 14, which sounds like a mix between like Steve Vai and Carlos Santana. Obviously, I didn't know this because I'm not that musical, but that's what his influence are listed on the album, and it does sound like he can do actual like really incredible things like tapping and shredding, but on the show they frame him like he can't even strum basic chords.
And they have him playing these singer-songwriter songs, but earlier in the episode when we see Archie's bedroom, he's got a Tough Age poster in there, and they're sort of like a indie surf lo-fi punk outfit, so I'm confused where Archie's getting his inspiration.
That is something for them to dig in the future, for sure. But that whole thing sets Betty off, and she runs away crying. Archie tries to go after her, and Betty, so proud of her, takes her first toddling steps into pettiness and says, "Look, you said I can't give you the answer you want right now, and that's what I'm saying to you." And then she heads off.
She seems so much cooler than him, and I like her showing that she's standing up for herself. I think she's probably, at this point, the most likable character, although I do have a bit of a soft spot for Jughead.
I just have to say that if Betty has this strong of a reaction to whiny white boys playing guitar, she's going to get herself into a lot of trouble in college. I'm a little concerned.
Oh, right after Betty runs away, Principal Weatherby grabs him and starts badgering him about the Jason Blossom case. My main thought was, why is this principal wearing weird circle glasses and a bolo tie? He's got kind of like a Teddy Roosevelt going through a Carlos Santana phase look going on, and I questioned wardrobe so much in this show.
I wish I could be more of a help with our wardrobe department, but Sarah had to tell me about the giant red spider brooch that was half the size of Cheryl's face, so I missed everything.
This wardrobe department is just seconds away from a collaboration with Rob Thomas with how they dress Principal Weatherby. The bolo tie was killer.
It's a great touch.
And then Archie runs to Miss Grundy, who's dressed in shapeless sackcloth. And I'm not trying to be mean to the actress. She's a pretty lady, as we discussed. But I think that the wardrobe department bought all the clothing for Miss Grundy based on the comics. And then when they cast a 30-something-year-old, they're like, it's too late. You just have to wear this burlap ensemble.
Yeah, she is, of course, holding a cello when he enters. And my main thought here is just, she is a public school music teacher. She's not sitting around holding or playing a cello in the middle of a school day. She's either teaching a class or she's doing paperwork and lesson planning. Her program's going to get cut at any second. She is busting her ass. I don't understand what's happening.
She likes to have her thighs wrapped around something nice and rigid as she works.
She just can't resist.
She likes her hands being pretty close to those F-holes. Sorry, sorry, that was too much. Oh, God. And Jughead, who's just walking by, is like, oh, hey, that's weird. It looks like my best friend and an elderly music teacher are getting it on. I wonder if I should be suspicious about this.
And it's clear in this scene Miss Grundy's being super manipulative and creepy. My question about this scene for you two, Jughead pulls off his headphones to look in the door. What you know about Jughead, what was he listening to right before he saw Archie and Miss Grundy?
He was definitely listening to the first Arcade Fire album, but a techno remix of it.
No. True crime podcast, obviously.
Ooh, I like the true crime podcast guess. I think that's probably the closest to the truth.
All right, and then that brings us to the cheerleading practice where... All right, so Sarah and I had a little bit of disagreement about this. I said the cheerleading is very sad. It's some of the least impressive cheerleading I've ever seen, which is funny because cheerleading is like a very physically demanding and active, sport. I'm not sure is the right word, but like it's definitely an activity that takes a lot of skill.
It's a sport. It's more athletic than football.
Yes. Okay. That I just
more
I don't
athletic
know what
than
a sport
golf.
is. I don't know any sports.
Cheerleading is a sport. The Olympic Committee recognized it as a sport sometime in the last couple of years.
Okay, so yes, it is a sport, very physically demanding. Good cheerleaders, they do some impressive things. Here in the episode, I would describe it as sad white girl twerking that they do. Because they're not actually twerking, which is an actual dance skill that people who know how to dance can do. They just kind of like barely bounce their butts a bit.
Well, Veronica's center stage. She's the only one who can dance.
No, she can't either. She's even sadder than the sad white girl twerking. She just does some sassy hands and a little hip wiggle and then the bend and snap. It's like none of this is cheering. Aren't there like flips and pyramids you guys are supposed to be doing?
No, cheerleading is just mediocre club dancing and matching outfits. That's all it is.
And then Cheryl announces to everyone that, we should just play the clip because it's amazing.
Stand down, vixens, and listen up. The weather's predicting a downpour the night of the rally, but already you're raining on my parade. With Jason so present in our collective consciousness, all eyes will be on me.
It's so good. Cheryl always talks like she's just writing a bad love poem to herself, which is to say I love her. I think she's fantastic, but it's a really interesting oratory style.
It's funny you say that because when you said that it's like a bad love poem, it made me wonder, this does sound like she's referencing something. So I did some digging, and what I found out is this is actually a word-for-word cover of an old jazz standard. There was a song originally performed by Unheard Music Concepts off their album Lasso of Time called Played by Ear, but some unknown artist later recorded vocals over it, and I think you just have to hear it because this is word for word where Cheryl got her speech from. Stand down, vixens, and listen up. The weather's predicting a downpour the night of the rally, but already you're raining on my parade. With Jason so present in our collective consciousness, all eyes will be on me. Will this beautiful, exotic, hothouse flower drown under the town's scrutiny, or be swamped by her emotions? The answer, ladies
was that Ella Fitzgerald on the track?
I think it was.
It's beautiful.
Although, I do want to point out there's more timeline weirdness here, because Veronica says that, Cheryl is throwing a pep rally to deal with her grief. That's either psycho or brilliant. And it makes me wonder, we know that the first arrest is going to be made by Tuesday, which I assume is tomorrow. And so this pep rally is happening on a Monday night, and they only found out about Jason's murder being a murder Saturday night, Sunday morning. So she put together a whole pep rally in the span of a day and a half.
There's nothing that hothouse flower can't do.
Hey, she made one call to the Pussycats and another call to Principal Weatherby, and everything else just sort of tumbled into place.
Yes, and Betty here takes another toddling step into bitchiness. Mm-hmm. She says,
Yeah, well, at least Cheryl's not putting on an act, pretending she's a butterfly when she's really a wasp.
Wow, Veronica's chrysalis of puberty has gone really wrong if she came out as a wasp.
She's going to want to go back into the chrysalis and try again.
My favorite part, though, is that Betty ends up inviting Cheryl to a pedicure instead of Veronica, which is the ultimate kind of girl betrayal. Pedicure-based betrayal. The worst kind.
Yeah, if either of you ever betray me on a pedicure, then this is over.
Tough but fair.
But yeah, that whole scene, Cheryl does such a great job. Still, she's the most fun character. I think Betty's maybe surpassed her as like the best character and the most well-rounded now, but Cheryl's still a lot of fun.
You're rooting for Betty because you're seeing her stand up for herself, and you're seeing her try to be happy and try to push back against people. We don't get a lot of depth with Cheryl, but she's entertaining every time she's on screen.
She's doing a great job as a makeup artist. I think she has a lot of potential. She just may want to ease up a little bit on the interrogation piece.
What about the physicality she has of straddling Betty?
No, I think that's perfect. Very professional.
Is there any way for them to shoot a scene where there isn't sexual tension between teenagers?
Yes, every scene between Archie and Veronica.
You know how in anime they always have the characters walk past each other, so they're sort of like almost back to back and they're speaking away from each other?
Oh, yes.
Riverdale's thing is, let's just have them get so close that they're breathing each other's air and then have a conversation.
Yeah, but we skipped over one of my favorite parts, which is Veronica's mom now works at Pop's chocolate shop. And when Archie comes in, he says, picking up an order for Andrews. And Veronica's mom is like, oh, hey, handsome, you must be Fred's son. Because, as we all know, Andrews is probably the most uncommon name anyone's ever heard.
It's a small town. There's only one Andrews family.
Look, maybe I'm biased because, I don't know if you guys know this, there are actually multiple Kevin Jameses in the world.
Really? It's not just
No
you.
way.
Yeah, I think we all know the very famous English soccer player, Kevin James.
Oh, yeah. He played for Arsenal?
No, that's not the holding he played for, Hunter. You really need to brush up on your English soccer.
No, was it Premier League or just Champions League?
Premier League, of course.
So there's one other Kevin James. It's not just you.
Yeah. Just me and the soccer player and no one else to my knowledge.
Yeah. That's interesting. I guess there could be more than one Andrews family in Riverdale. Wow, I can't remember the name of where this show takes place.
I constantly am on the verge of accidentally calling it Archie the series.
I don't know why they went with Riverdale. It sounds more mysterious, but at least Archie and his dad look basically like carbon copies of each other, so there's that real family resemblance there.
They are both white men, so yeah.
Every white guy looks the same.
And then Veronica walks Archie home, and Archie actually shares a very sweet story about how Betty helped him pass the second grade, which I think that does reveal a lot about how smart Archie is.
There hasn't been any indication in this series that Archie is very intelligent.
No.
He seems to struggle with basic concepts. He can't form sentences. He can't even sneak out of his own home without being caught. he can't keep his romance a secret for more than like 2 weeks into the school year.
But apparently he can drop Nabokov references in his music.
Yeah, maybe that's why they cut that scene, because they just thought it was a little too highbrow for Archie.
Really out of character, yeah.
Yeah, I guess he's kind of a musical savant. But and then we get Betty and Cheryl and the interrogation. And Sarah, you pointed out that this is a recurring thing that kind of comes back. Betty having some darkness to her.
Yes, you're going to see that in the next episode, I believe. Dark Betty.
So yeah, Dark Betty, she threatens to kill Cheryl, which, wow, that turned up to like 11 or 12 so quickly. Like, she went from like, I can now stand up for myself, like, time to murder.
I feel like, to me, that was a relatable teenage girl thing of, you're a teenager, you don't have control of your emotions. The amount of times my sisters threatened to kill me when they were teenagers, can't even count.
Yeah, I mean, I think Betty changing her mind every 5 seconds about how she feels about literally everyone in the show is the most believable teenage portrayal.
Definitely.
On Riverdale.
Yeah.
But are they maybe setting up Betty to be the killer with that little bit of darkness and the murder threat?
I can't. She's not even on my murder board. It's Betty. They can't have some twist like that in the show. I would storm out. I'm sorry. If they have Betty as the killer, I'm going to be real upset.
They also set up that it might have been Polly because Cheryl assumes that Betty's sister may have just been trying to get back at Jason.
Which, yeah, she's a possibility. So I think the main suspects would then be Polly, Kevin Keller for obvious reasons, which we'll get to later, and Betty's mom is now no longer a suspect, although she's still totally crazy. As soon as she found out that Cheryl was over at the house, she flips out and has like a cleansing.
Yeah, she exorcises more demons than the Exorcist over here.
Exactly.
She's just way too preppy and suburban to be cleansing a room with sage. It's just blatant appropriation of New Age white lady culture.
That was strange, but not as strange as the fact that the sleeves on Betty's mom's shirt were clearly trimmed with pinking shears, which everyone would have noticed on a first watch, which means the wardrobe department cut the sleeves on that shirt but didn't have time to hem them. It just goes back to the fact that this wardrobe department is overworked and underpaid and isn't given the time they need.
I need to pay more attention to fashion. I'm sorry. Forgive me.
I really liked the matching cheerleading practice uniforms, which did not have the name of the school on them at all. Just, I don't know how that came about. Did Cheryl order everyone to buy the same outfit? Did she buy them for the team? Like, practices don't happen in specific uniforms. What was going on there?
Like the baseball t-shirt and the little booty shorts.
Yeah, all exactly the same. Like, if that school is paying for that, that's a real misuse of public school funding.
And so then that brings us to a series of confrontations. Jughead is just waiting outside Archie's home to be like, hey, I know about you and Grundy. Why are you being so weird?
Oh man, I've got some notes on this. Let me find this.
Yeah, it's worth noting that, so the reason that Jughead and Archie are kind of broken up is Archie didn't go on their July 4th road trip together, and it seems like a pretty mild reason to end what seems like a decades-long friendship.
And he has such a good excuse for not going on the road trip whenever his response to Jughead knowing about him and Miss Grundy is, I like her.
Yes. Oh my god. And Archie threatens Jughead not to tell him about anyone about him and Grundy. And Jughead, in a very caring and emotionally supportive response to his friend who is being statutorily raped, says, I can't believe you care more about some cougar than the kid who was shot.
Yeah, there was a lot of bad lines in that scene. It seemed like Jughead was picking up on her being manipulative, but he didn't come out and say it, and instead he has this line where he just says, she's messing with you, man, and she's messing with your mind, which didn't fit anything else that was said in the scene.
It's a very roundabout, glancing way of acknowledging that the relationship is wrong without actually getting to the heart of it.
Yeah, I would just been like, hey, she's way older than you. What she's doing is totally illegal. That's really weird and strange.
And so then we already talked about Betty's mom, and she tells Betty that you should stop hanging out with Betty and Veronica. Smash cut to Betty at the lockers apologizing to Veronica. I love these scenes where Betty's like, all right, whatever my mom says, the opposite. Which, to be fair, is how I think I would deal with that mom too.
That's how I dealt with my mom, so I can really relate to this.
Let's get this straight. Her mom is fucked 3 ways towards the weekend. So if Betty has a little bit of a dark side, it's excusable. And if she doesn't listen to her at all, that's totally fine.
Though my favorite part, the one fashion thing I actually noted, because even I caught on to this one, is that during this whole scene, Veronica is dressed like a professional woman who's looking for love in the big city.
Oh yeah, she's got like a pencil skirt on or something.
No, it's like a wrap dress.
With
It's a
a
very
giant
weird
black
outfit.
leather purse that like says like, I am a confident and independent woman, and I am definitely a mid-level manager at a fashion company.
That purse is actually to hold all of her references.
She didn't actually get too many references this episode. Kevin kind of took the lead from her for most references and most obscure references.
Montgomery Clift is still for me the most obscure reference. That or Mildred Pierce.
Yep.
Yeah, that's that's a lot.
Final confrontation is the big one, the big dust up.
Oh, yes. I love this. Reggie accuses Jughead of being Jason's killer and says, did you do stuff to the body? And Jughead says, it's called necrophilia, Reggie. Can you spell it? And Reggie goes, come here, you. Clearly responding to the very real threat of being asked to spell.
Yeah. Jughead again really leans into this like loner creeper stereotype where instead of doing what a normal human would do, which would say, I didn't kill anyone, that's weird for you to suggest that, he's just like, it's called necrophilia. Like, maybe you know about it if you logged on to 4chan every once in a while.
Get with the program, Reggie.
I do really like Reggie here. He's a very believable teen, and he is totally right describing how, like, Jughead right now kind of is, like, the loner, isolated manifesto writing weirdo who would shoot up a school.
Excuse me, he's not writing a manifesto. He's writing sardonic humor, okay?
Look out for Jughead's novel, Sardonic Humor in the Age of Trump, in bookstores everywhere next November.
But we find out that Reggie's getting questioned by the sheriff, which seems really weird to me, except for the fact that he calls himself, in the third person, Mantle the Magnificent, which would lead me to question that kid, because he's clearly got some sort of problem.
Yeah, and so Archie steps in to defend Jughead and gets a black eye for his
He
trouble.
lasts about 4 seconds in that fight. I loved that. Like, he
was
shoves
beautiful.
Reggie.
All that construction work really paid
Reggie
off.
just throws him down and literally knocks him out with a single punch. Reggie is, okay, I'm going to say Betty, Reggie, and Jughead are the characters that I like on this show.
What about Cheryl?
You know, if she knocks out Archie, she's going to go up.
Okay, let's look forward to that in the next episode.
I really hope so. I want like some sort of like Fight Club episode.
That would explain Chapter 37, Fight Club.
Hey, I had no idea what sort of movie they would name that after.
And then, of course, after getting a black eye, Archie has a heart-to-heart with his dad. His dad's like, son, I'm proud of you for sticking up for your friend.
He doesn't really dig into the, hey, you're getting in fights at school, you're leaving the house at midnight to go mysterious places, and you're telling me cryptic things about some girl you're seeing. I have a real problem with this character.
He is just such a bundle of, like, well-meaning and competent dad tropes.
Free range parenting. It's all the rage now.
I think he's the millennial concept of what a parent should be. And I expected him to be more of what my parents would be like. You're an idiot. You're not going anywhere. Tell me what the fuck is happening.
No, on a CW show, the parents have to be sort of there only vaguely and then fade out or die. Ooh, a little too soon with Luke Perry.
Did you just spoil this?
And
I'm throwing
did,
things
sorry.
across the room in here. Not Luke Perry. He's an American heartthrob.
He survived the gymnasium being burned down in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but he can't survive Riverdale?
he and Jughead become ghosts together. It's fine.
Jughead's a ghost. At least you're confirming that.
Yes, there's narration at the end where he says, when he, Archie, Betty, and Veronica are getting milkshakes there, he says, to anyone looking in from the outside, it would have seemed like there were 4 people there, but really, there were only 3. So we've confirmed he's not a real person.
He's a ghost. I'm telling you. Well, he did interact with other characters in this episode, so it sort of blew up my theory from episode 1.
I'm just going to say, Having seen a season and a half of this show, that speech made absolutely no sense to me whatsoever. Not sure where he was going with that. Doesn't seem relevant.
That whole speech was a very cringy moment for me.
He's a loner. He doesn't fit in. He's a misfit. You just wouldn't understand him, Sarah. Have you ever even read On the Road?
In the original English?
After I translated it into Latin and back to English with Google Translate?
Obviously.
All right, so Archie tells his dad, like, oh, there's a girl. I'm gonna tell something that could ruin our relationship. And Dad's like, good for you, son. Do what's right. Live your best life.
It's a very confusing conversation, but full of honesty, apparently.
And that brings us to the pep rally,
where Kevin jumps up the list as number one suspect in the murder.
Go on.
Because as they're panning the camera around the pep rally, Kevin's, for some reason, walking around the track in street clothes. He's not a part of a sports team. Doesn't look like he's shooting pictures for a school paper. He's not a cheerleader. He's just there. He's somewhere he shouldn't be. Instantly suspicious. I'm looking at details here. I'm trying to find a killer.
Oh, and yes, so Archie tells Grundy he's gonna come forward on his own. He won't tell the police that they were there together. He then goes to Jughead and tells Jughead...
Wait, hold on a second. First of all, we have to talk about the fact that Archie has been so paranoid all episode long about someone finding out about him and Grundy. And then he decides, let's have this serious conversation in the middle of a football field before a pep rally. Secrets!
My thought here was that as soon as Archie says this to Grundy, she's going to turn state's evidence and say, oh, Archie's one of my students and he opened up to me that he was at the river, like, doing hood rat things, and he's scared to come to the police and get herself out of trouble. And I thought Archie's going to get arrested in this episode.
That sounds so much more clever than what actually happened.
Yeah, that would have been a real improvement.
That's where I thought it was going, because, oh, you told the person you're going to do this. The next day, you're totally going to get snake in the grass and you're going to end up shit creek. But no, as we see, that kind of gets dissipated. Although, Kevin, I think you're going for the beautiful moment between Archie and Jughead.
I think we should just play the clip of them making up.
Can we all mutually suppress our emotions and nod douchily first?
We're not gonna hug in front of this whole town. So why don't we both just do that bro thing where we nod like douches and mutually suppress our emotions?
Ooh, that was a rough line.
That entire exchange... I don't know what Jughead's going for at all in this.
Me neither. I'm very fond of Jughead in general, so I definitely didn't remember how cringy he was, particularly in that moment, and didn't even really realize it on rewatch until I looked over and saw Kevin's face as he was speaking, and then heard it anew and realized, yeah, it's garbage what he says.
Yeah. It's rough.
I still like Jughead, maybe because when I was 15, I probably would have been that little stupid edgelord dork who would say something like that.
Yeah.
Hunter, I'm 100% with you. My coworkers actually decided that of the characters on the show, I was absolutely Jughead, and for the same reason.
See?
But I don't like to watch it.
I see myself as a Principal Weatherby, mostly because of my style choices.
I like to see myself as a Mayor McCoy. But so it's... I think the thing that makes it worse about Jughead for right now is he's douchey, but he's self-aware douchey, which makes it worse. Like Reggie is also douchey, but he is totally not aware of it. He thinks he is funny and the best, and that plays a lot better.
It does. I actually laugh whenever Reggie's making jokes because I think it's legitimately funny. When Jughead says those things, I just feel like this kid has a lot of growing up to do. I kind of feel bad for him. Like he's going through a rough patch.
Oh, speaking of rough patches, the actual pep rally kicks off with Josie and the Pussycats and their
Monday Night Football rendition of Sugar Sugar.
Ooh, it's so rough. It's actually a cover of the Inner Cities cover featuring Flo Rida of the Archies' Sugar Sugar, and it is... Oh, it's bad. I don't know that anyone could have made a Flo Rida verse work, but... Ooh,
I'm just glad to see they're so committed to only performing original work.
They're building a brand here. The brand is basically just Flow Rida.
Why did they underline that so much in the first episode? We only play original songs, and so far they've only played covers. In the first episode, at least, they excused it with, like, they've made an exception tonight. But here they're playing a cover of a cover. They have gone so far from their original music idea.
I don't know. I'm still trying to triangulate where the Pussycats fall into this, because they don't seem connected to the plot at all. I don't know if it's just to add a musical element besides art. I'm just going to say right now, I'm completely baffled by their inclusion.
Yeah, it seems like they're kind of doing a thing where it's like, oh, we'll have some kind of prominent black extras to make you overlook the fact that the whole main cast is lily white. Because they do that a lot where, like, every authority figure who's not, like, a real character is made is cast with a black actor. The principal, the mayor, the coach. But none of them are characters. All the main characters, as we see, are just the whitest people. It's like, no, please watch us, millennials. We understand that diversity is important. Look, there's a trio of black singers.
Yeah, the black authority figure thing feels very like, it's the new trick they figured out in the 80s of trying to make a cast diverse. It's a little rough to see it in 2017.
Yeah, they could have done a lot better. And I think Veronica is the only actress in the main cast who's not super white.
Yeah.
Well, and Kajapa, because son of a Samoan chief.
Yes, he's not white, though he looks very white.
Yes, he does.
I thought he was white.
He is ghostly.
That's fair. His character is very, very white. Aggressively white.
Can one be aggressively white without having like a shaved head and a swastika tattoo?
I wouldn't have known it until now.
And that brings us to Cheryl's breakdown. She sees Archie in Jason's jersey, and she does have a breakdown. Turns out, ladies, the answer was yes and yes.
It really did rain on Cheryl's parade, just like she said it would. Foreshadowing.
And she takes off sprinting across the field. Like, that can't be the shortest route to get away from everyone. And her parents just kind of look on like, oh, that's weird. I hope someone goes and comforts her. We'll just stay here.
She's making a mockery of our family.
Luckily, Veronica does go and comfort her in a pretty charitable act of, like, emotional solidarity.
Yeah, it's a sweet conversation.
We got a sort of a tidbit that there's more and more to this mystery.
Yes, Cheryl says he was supposed to come back, and so I wanted to ask you guys, what do you make of that line?
He was turned into a zombie, I assume.
Hunter?
He was supposed to get out of the freezer handcuffs thing. He was doing some sort of David Copperfield escape, and it went horribly wrong, and that's why he's dead.
I assume, I don't have a good joke like you guys. I just assume, like, they were doing, like, kind of typical, like, rich brats acting out. Like, they were just kind of faking a disappearance, and then he somehow got murdered while that was happening. And they were just, like, trying to get their parents' attention, and it somehow went horribly wrong. And that's what she meant.
Would you really want those parents' attention?
I think they would just kind of look on and be like, oh, that's interesting. Our son has disappeared.
Oh, you're back? I didn't know you'd left. It's been a month, Mom!
Yeah, and Veronica's act of compassion convinces Betty, okay, like, you really are a better person I've given you credit for. Let's make up. Let's go to Pops together.
Yeah, there's this really rosy thing where at the pep rally, Betty talks to Archie, she makes up with Veronica. Jughead and Archie have their sort of thing of, we're gonna be friends again, and everything is going so well that you know it has to turn, which is why I thought, oh, absolutely, Archie's gonna be the one who gets arrested.
Yeah, nope. But at Pops, Betty and Veronica order deeply symbolic milkshakes.
And it also gets pointed out to us. Like, not just do they hand Betty a vanilla and Veronica a double chocolate, the waiter also announces it
just in case we missed it.
And does snappy finger points.
Symbols!
Is it just a symbol that, like, that's their hair color, or is that supposed to be their personality? Like, one is dark and rich and the other is plain?
I think it's both, but Sarah and I were discussing this, and I think the air for Veronica to be kind of like a darker version of Betty has really kind of gotten sucked out of the show with the inclusion of Cheryl.
Yeah, and in this episode in particular, Betty is bitchier than Veronica is. I mean, she's darker, arguably, I think.
Yeah, the foiling here is not quite working. Something about the dynamic needs improvement, because it makes sense that Betty is like, you know, the kind of
girl next door.
Yeah, very innocent, plain spoken. But right now the territory of like haughty queen bitch is occupied by Cheryl, and Veronica doesn't really have space for herself to breathe. She's caught between those two more clearly defined roles, and the character suffers for it. She's not as clearly defined as the others. She doesn't really exist with her own dynamic yet.
I think based on what we've seen in this episode of Veronica trying to be a better person and Betty showing a little bit of her dark side, actually would have made more sense if their orders were flipped.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then Archie and Jughead show up, and so obviously Archie's going to order the strawberry milkshake. What do you guys think Jughead's going to order?
He's going to order black coffee.
Just an empty glass.
Yes, and so everyone makes up, and they're all happy together, and Jughead gives that narration, with the neon lights keeping the darkness at bay, but giving way, as all nights must, to a morning of reckoning.
The morning of reckoning, which was so much lighter than I thought it would be.
It's literally just they come to arrest Cheryl before Archie can talk about what he hears, and I loved the scene. I loved the scene so much.
I love how the police say, we don't have to do this here. Like, then why did you come to this classroom?
Right. We don't have to do this in front of your classmates, despite the fact we all just showed up in front of your classmates. Cheryl says that she's guilty, but we know that that can't be true because Jughead's closing narration confirms that in actuality, Jason died a week later than everyone suspected.
So the gunshot on the 4th that Archie has been so torqued up about meant literally nothing, was just an aberration. It could have been someone setting off fireworks.
Yeah.
It was the very famous sound that ropes make when you tie someone up.
Yes.
That's the sign of a slip knot.
It was a freezer closing.
Yeah. Or maybe it's a clove hitch. I get the sounds of those two knots confused.
The fact that we get this information, instead of adding to the mystery, for me, drains tension. Because now there's no reason for Archie to come forward to anyone about anything. He and Miss Grundy can continue their relationship in peace, and he's got literally nothing to do with the murder at all.
It also means that we know Cheryl's not guilty because she can't have shot him.
Where was she on July 11th?
I don't know.
We don't know. But, I mean, she can't have done it because it's episode 2.
Yeah.
So, it's a little soon to be revealed.
Well, yes. There are structural reasons, too. But normally you don't point out that directly in the narration. Like, oh, by the way, turns out she can't have done it.
But she says she's guilty, and we know that she's not guilty of that, so she's just going to be admitting to some lesser thing.
That's why I think it's that they planned the disappearance and it went wrong, and so she feels responsible for her death even though she didn't cause it.
Cheryl doesn't seem like the type of person who would feel responsible for anything. I still think she just wanted to be cuffed.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. So now I'll tell you guys my theory about who really killed Jason. So we know that Moose has a horse-like penis.
Oh, yes.
It's very important.
I still think about that all the time.
What I assume is that he, like many Riverdale students, was just down by the river at 6 a.m. on July 4th. You know, it's a common thing. Mm-hmm. And he saw Jason getting out of the river in those sopping wet white clothes, which must have become transparent. And he immediately got turned on and got a massive erection, which sounded like a gunshot just because of how big it was. And it just hit Jason square in the forehead and killed him.
I'm not sure I can poke any holes in that.
Well, we solved this one. You're welcome, Riverdale.
Did you guys have the opportunity to think of my question earlier? Which famous movie would you like an episode of Riverdale named after?
Give me 2 seconds on this one.
Yeah, I need to think about that.
All right, while you do that, I'm going to bring up some lines from the cringiest line department. There were quite a few. Cheryl's whole Green Mile speech and the Riverdale Strong, Twin Tuition, one I didn't call out earlier. Kevin says of Moose, no straight man has that body. And Betty, pivoting on a dime, says, hey, speaking of bodies, have you recovered from seeing Jason? Sorry, you were being pretty thirsty right there. Let's go back to talking about corpses.
That was a real pivot. She was really uncomfortable with having a homosexual conversation, so she's just like, let's talk about death.
Yeah. Most of Kevin's references are on there. The Romeo and Juliet are the exception, not the rule. Yes, I'm sorry your love ended up in tragedy, unlike Romeo and Juliet.
That one, I thought overall that scene, or the lines leading up to it, were good.
No, they were very strong. That was a really good conversation.
I thought it was like, okay, this is something that people need to hear, or it's a really good message and realistic thing for teenagers to come to grips with when Veronica says, most of the time the people we like don't like us back. She could have just ended there. That's powerful, good writing, and then they just like, let's throw in a Romeo and Juliet reference.
Yeah, no, it's no one's fault that Archie doesn't like you. It's not even Archie's fault. It's true. Attraction is a weird thing that is out of everyone's control. It was a good scene, maybe a little mishandled, but overall I did like that part a lot.
And then, I've got a couple leading up to my favorite. In that scene where Veronica is apologizing to Betty, she uses the line about being sorry. She says, I swear on my mother's pearls.
Confirmed. Veronica does steal her mother's pearls.
Which is super weird and not a thing anyone says, but also, like, you guys are poor now. You probably had to sell those.
Wow. But then what will her mother clutch?
Oh, no.
The douchebag hugging in front of the whole town line, that was there. Cheryl, get the hell out of my house before I kill you. That was a cringe for me.
Oh, yeah.
All of the ending narration from Jughead.
Kevin questioning whether someone named Moose could actually be fluid, which is just, why does Kevin have so many stereotypes about members of the Elk family? I don't understand.
Yeah. If his name was Reindeer, what would you think then?
Right.
My favorite line, I don't know if it was necessarily a cringe line, but my favorite was when we're in the office and they're making the announcement towards the beginning of the episode about Jason Blossom's murder. Principal Weatherby opens up with this line. There have been many inquiries about the upcoming pep rally. Like, really? Really? A bunch of people are like, hey, like, Jason died, but we're still having a pep rally, right?
Principal Weatherby, what's this pep rally going to be like? Tell me more about it.
Who cares that much about it?
We just know that pep rallies are the best way to deal with grief, okay? There have been many clinical trials on the healing effects of pep rallies that happen in the middle of the night on Mondays, as pep rallies do.
Always.
I don't know anything about pep rallies. I've never been to one.
Yes, that was something I avoided very much in high school.
So my cringy line was the entirety of the rap verse for Sugar Sugar.
Oh, yeah. I had to mute that on the second watch. I'm sorry.
I guess we kind of already covered this, but I want to introduce a new section called Who's Walking the Green Mile to Old Sparky, where we make predictions for who shot Jason.
Ooh.
I can't participate in this.
No, you can't. Get out.
Leave this now.
I mean, I could, but I'd be very accurate.
It's either Luke Perry or Kevin Keller.
I think Vegas.
All right. It's an accident. It's a hunting accident. Right? The bullet happened to hit him right between the eyes. That's it. Could have happened to anyone.
Now, Hunter, are we going to do Who's Horny for
Archie, the most fuckable kid in school? This episode, I don't know if anyone new expressed horniness for Archie.
Principal Weatherby, obviously.
Well, yeah.
Very interested in Archie's looks.
Betty's mom, Veronica's mom?
Veronica's mom, absolutely.
Oh my gosh, you're right. Yeah, we've got Veronica's mom because she says, "Who's this heartbreaker?" Principal Weatherby has the line, I'm quoting from memory, "You're in a very good place right now, Archie."
But you could be in an even better place.
Backseat of my Toyota is a lot bigger than the backseat of a Beetle.
And it's filled with bolo ties. This is a tough show to rate.
That's what I was thinking. I have no idea what I would rate this episode.
I don't know. This episode was a struggle because it felt like more tension dissipated than was built.
Well, the thing I learned, so this is a little peek behind our process. Hunter and I trade off writing outlines for the episode to keep us on track in our discussion. And in writing the outline, I realized what actually happens in this episode is so slight, but it overlaps with all the other slight things that are happening. So structurally, it's complex, but it's also flimsy. It's a total house of cards. Like when we do our recap, you'll see how little actually happens. But in trying to go through it one by one, there's just so much overlap that if you miss something, the structure kind of collapses, even though very little is actually occurring.
Kevin?
Yes.
I have made my decision, or what movie I would like to have an episode of Riverdale named after. Since we didn't get anything about the giant fucking bag of $100 bills that Veronica's mom got, I want the next episode to be called Tango and Cash. It's something about a dance competition, and we find out why the hell there's suddenly like $30,000 that got dropped in this character's lap. Does that ever come back?
Nope, completely forgotten. I actually don't know. We'll find out.
Hopefully. We're rich again.
Let's see. I would really love an episode where Archie, Cheryl, and Jason's ghost go on a murder rampage together. So I'm going to go with Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
I would love to see episode style these. And I guess that'll bring us to our recap and predictions. Betty makes up with both Veronica and Archie. Archie and Jughead also make up. Cheryl is emotionally damaged and under arrest for her twin's murder. And Jason actually died at least a week later than everyone believes. That's it. That's all that really happened.
The only other thing I can add to that is that Betty's mom is being really evasive about her sister Polly. So that my prediction is Polly is completely missing. No one knows where she is. And Betty's parents have been feeding her a line. The kid's just gone.
Yeah, let's see. My prediction is that I will continue to miss all of the fashion notes that you guys hit. That's more of a promise than a prediction, I guess. And then my real prediction is obviously that Cheryl will be released pretty quickly in the next episode once that autopsy report comes out. There will continue to be a baffling number of old references. I don't know. I kind of already peppered in all my predictions.
Josie and the Pussycats will finally play an original song in the next episode.
Ooh, that's actually not a prediction I have.
I just want it to happen once.
Look, Hunter, they are building a brand.
That brand, they need to have an original song sooner or later. If Archie over there is strumming his heart out, there's 3 of them. They can write 3 times as many songs as him.
They have an entire empty music hall to compose in. The only other person is just the music teacher holding her cello in the corner.
Wait, maybe the bag of cash is hush money because someone connected to Veronica murdered Jason. I'm trying to find some way to tie that plot point in. I don't understand what's going on there.
I think you're just supposed to understand that Betty's mom is crazy and scary, which I feel like was unnecessary because that came across loud and clear.
Yeah, the parents in this show have not been all-stars. I'm just going to say that.
No, they're all pretty rough.
Are there any other notes that you have missed or would like to get to?
Oh, an important one. Veronica says, Betty, can we make a vow that no matter what, no boy will ever come between us again? Which really ruined my prediction of a throuple resolving all the sexual tension.
Well, now we got Jughead in the mix, even though he's not really there, but he's this weird, creepy loner. I don't know. I'm kind of on Reggie's side with him.
Yeah, that's all I got. So I guess that's it for the episode.
Thanks for listening.
Oh, sure, if you want to be cliche.
Hashtag Riverdale Strong.
Until then, you can reach us on Twitter at GrittyRebootPod or by email at GrittyRebootPodcast@gmail.com. We look forward to seeing you next time.